Did this series go well for the Red Sox at all? No, but did they avoid total disaster and embarrassment? Yeah, somehow they did. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Seat Radio. My name is Corbin. The Boston Red Sox mission to be the most average team in Major League Baseball continues at a pretty excellent pace because over this weekend, they split a series with the Chicago White Sox, the historically bad Chicago White Sox, officially putting them at 33-33 on the year. Still somehow third place in this division, still about 12-ish games back of the Yankees for first place, but more importantly, they're just a game and a half out of a wild card spot. That's right, one good series, and the Boston Red Sox are a playoff team. And in my opinion, this series was extremely close. I mean, as close as you could possibly get to not only being the worst series of the year for the Red Sox so far, but also just a flat-out embarrassment, kind of a disaster with the week you've got ahead of you. So what we are going to do in today's video is we're going to break this latest series down. We're going to talk about the good, talk about the bad, and talk about what this series could mean for the course of the 2024 season. But before we get into that, do me a favor, make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Don't forget, these episodes are always available in podcast form. If you want to listen on the go, you can either click the link in my description, head over to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or you can just head over to your favorite podcasting app and look up Red Seat Radio. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. To be totally honest with you, I'm having a really hard time figuring out the best way to recap this series because it was just so all over the place. You had multiple injuries within the series as a whole, multiple really important injuries as well. Tyler O'Neill came out of his game. He only got 2 games back before that knee started bothering him again. Still no word as to whether or not that's going to require an IL stint, but not exactly fantastic at all. Rafael Devers came out in the 3rd game of this series with his own knee problems. He couldn't play in the 4th game, right? So you come into this series already down a whole lot. We don't need to go into who else is on the IL, but you come out of this series with 2 more of your biggest names not being there. Yeah, it becomes a whole lot harder to win anything when you don't have Tyler O'Neill or Rafael Devers to help hold down this lineup. So I got to give some credit where credit's due here. The Red Sox were able to split this series despite basically not having your 2, 3, 4, or 5 hitter, and that doesn't even include your 6 hitter in Wilyer Abreu. However, there are some other things that went down in this series that I think we need to break down. There was some really fantastic pitching in Tanner Houck, who brought a no-hitter into the 6th, ended up going 7 innings, allowing 2 earned runs, striking out 9, and walking no one. His ERA is now at a 1.91, and I made the case in a video last week that Houck has become the best pitcher in baseball. I still believe that. He was absolutely incredible, and he truly is the most fun player to watch on this team right now. It just sucks we have to wait until every 5 days till we get another Tanner Houck start. You had pretty mediocre pitching in Cooper Criswell, which honestly is pretty fine with me. 4 1/3 innings, allowing 3 earned on 5 hits and a couple of Ks. I think you take that almost every time regardless of what opponent it is from Criswell. It's absolutely enough to keep you in the game, and to be honest with you, that's all we should be asking of Cooper Criswell right now, is to just simply keep the Red Sox in baseball games, and he did that in this one. You had really rough pitching in Brian Bayo, who was great until the 5th inning where he totally broke down. His stat line ended up being 4 2/3 innings, 5 earned on 9 hits with 3 walks and 2 Ks. I'm a bit worried about Bayo. He was showing real visible frustration out there. You could tell he's absolutely going through it. And what's crazy about his starts is that 90% of his outing is really fantastic, right? It's not like he's going out there and getting shelled for 4 innings and then has to come out, right? No, he's dominating for 4, and then in the 5th, you just absolutely falls apart. It's been 1 inning over his last few starts that he simply cannot figure out. My issue here now is, how do you make these adjustments, right? Is Bayo struggling to make these adjustments? Is he refusing to make these adjustments? Or is the league just simply catching up too fast for him to be able to successfully make these adjustments? Because at this point, you come off the IL, and I don't know if it's the IL stint that threw him off that much, because we were seeing similar things before he went on the IL. Again, I think it's just a sophomore year pitcher trying to figure himself out in Major League Baseball. I'm just at the point now where I'm wondering how long it's going to take till we see those adjustments get made, because because under a normal circumstance year, this would be totally fine, right? If he was your 4 or your 5 pitcher and you had a couple of established guys at the top of the rotation, there'd be no problems here. But the fact that you have Tanner Houck and then basically no one else in the rotation right now, Bayo's every move is going to be under a microscope. So I don't love this at all from Bayo, and I'm hoping he's able to make those adjustments. I think he will. I just hope he's able to make them in a timely manner before he gets too into his head about it. The bullpen in this series was a relatively solid part of this team once again. Bernardino allowed a run, bringing his ERA up to a whopping 1.03. He still just absolutely nails. That dude has no heartbeat when it comes to runners on base. It's absolutely impressive. Justin Slayton gave up 3 runs. Only one of them was earned. You had some really rough defense from the Red Sox in this series, and you don't love that, right? They'd been on a streak where they'd been playing really good defense, but man, they cannot go into these next 2 series playing sloppy defense, or they are going to get absolutely crushed. Either way, Slayton looked a little bit sloppy, but again, most of that's due to unearned runs, so we'll give him a break on that. Overall, again, the bullpen, pretty good. Nothing to really complain about, nothing to really sort of get super pumped about, just a really solid series for the bullpen. As for the offense, it was sort of all over the place, exactly like the pitching was. You had 3 home runs in the first game of this series, 14 runs total. It was an absolute offensive onslaught. Jarren Duran had a home run so early in this game that the White Sox hadn't even thrown a strike yet. He was great in this series, but we will get to that in a second. In this game, he went 4 for 5 with 2 RBIs. You saw Jamie Westbrook's first big league home run. Just a really cool moment for him. I can't imagine that feeling after 11 years in the minors, realizing, hey, now I can forever say I hit a home run at the major league level. It's got to be really, really awesome. Valdez had a tank shot. Wong did really well. As a team, it looked absolutely fantastic, and they hit 409 with runners in scoring position. That's what happens when you can hit with runners in scoring position, right? The offense looks like an absolute juggernaut. Unfortunately, they just absolutely fell asleep at the wheel for the next couple of games. The second game, Tyler O'Neill is out, right? We talked about that. Then they get blown away by Crochet. Duran did technically steal home in this game. I don't know whether or not I consider this a steal. I think it's just an extremely well heads-up play, and I do absolutely give Duran all the credit in the world, but I don't know if this is like it's not a straight steal of home. And I don't love the idea that this is a stolen base, but that's totally besides the point. Still very cool that he technically stole home, and it was still a very, very heads-up play. But you were 0-8 with runners in scoring position, and you didn't get any better in the third game. 1 run against a very, very bad pitcher that walked 5 players in his 4 1/3 innings. That's a ton of traffic on the base pass, so you just simply could do absolutely nothing with. And you're talking about, again, a team that is so historically bad, they could end up being one of the worst teams to be ever put together on a baseball diamond, right? It's not like we're talking about, these guys are kind of bad. These guys are really bad, and this pitcher is really bad, and he gave you a ton of opportunities, and you just could do absolutely nothing with it, aside from Bobby Dahlbeck, or Bobby Bombs, who ended up going up there and hitting his first big league home run of the season. I think it's been a pretty long time since we've seen a Bobby Bomb at the major league level. It was a beautiful opposite field home run, and I just honestly love Bob, so I'm going to show every time he hits a home run, regardless of the outcome. But you absolutely and totally disappear in this middle part of this series offensively, and to me, that's the biggest reason why you're walking out of here with a split and not a 3 or 4 game sweep. It's just, you can't do that against these bad teams. You have to be able to capitalize on them, especially if you are going to end up sucking against all these good teams like you have so far this year. Now, in the 4th game of this series, I actually got to give them a bit of credit. They didn't have the best offense in the world, and a lot of that was due to the fact that this may have been the worst lineup we have seen in the entirety of the 2024 season, which is saying something because we've seen some really bad lineups with all these injuries, but with no O'Neill, with no Devers, with no Massa, with no Casas, with none of those guys, this was as close to a quadruple A lineup as you could possibly get. And regardless of missing that talent, David Hamilton and Jarren Duran were able to pretty much single-handedly, at least offensively, pick this team up. Duran scored 3 runs in this game, including one of them coming off of his 10th triple of the year, way more than anyone else in baseball, and the first time since 2009 when Ellsbury did it over the course of an entire season that a Red Sox player had 10 or more triples. Jarren Duran is an absolute nightmare on the base pass in the best way possible. He's had his ups and he's had his downs so far this season, but the fact that one, he is an absolute machine when it comes to extra bases, and two, he's been available, knock on wood, for every single game so far for the Red Sox this season, has made him, in my opinion, by far and away the offensive MVP. And we got to give credit where credit is due. Absolutely. David Hamilton is going absolutely nuts right now. He has been fantastic offensively lately for the Boston Red Sox. He hit his second major league home run and scored twice in this game. Essentially, between Jaron Rand and David Hamilton, the Red Sox scored 5 of their 6 runs off of those two guys, which, you know, hey, you need those type of things to happen if you're going to win games when you're so injury depleted. But with David Hamilton specifically, his average is up to 282. He has a 775 OPS on the year, which is pretty well above average. I wouldn't say it's crazy above average, but it's comfortably above average in Major League Baseball. In my opinion, if the Red Sox were to play him at second, he would be a really solid player. Unfortunately, they don't have that ability right now with all the injuries, and yeah, David Hamilton not looking great defensively at shortstop, and it really does take away from what he's been doing offensively, because yeah, you had to make up this difference. You had to generate 5 runs on a day where your offense was really ugly because of the fact that David Hamilton just couldn't get the job done defensively. So he's doing it offensively, but still absolutely frustrating defensively. They were able to squeak out 6 runs in this game and split the series, which again, on its own with how this lineup is really impressive. Overall, does splitting a series against the worst team, possibly historically in Major League Baseball, really feel like crap? Yeah, it kind of does, but I also think there's a ton of context that's needed here, right? You go into this series with Rafi and O'Neill finally healthy, and then nope, you come out of this series with both those guys going down at certain points. The offense has been all over the place, and we can point to the reasons why I think this isn't a bad thing that they split this series, and it's the same reasons that we've talked about this entire year, so I'm not going to go into them super in depth, but it's just inexperience and health. You don't have either of those things, and this is exactly what the team's going to look like if you don't have either of those things. You don't have experience and you aren't healthy, you're probably going to end up splitting series against teams that you probably should win against. Now, what I will say is what I really wanted from this series, and I think what most people really wanted from this series, was to at minimum take 3 games, because what that gives you is a tiny little bit of wiggle room while you play 2 of the best teams in Major League Baseball over the coming days, where you're probably not going to look too good against them, right? If you had won all 4 games, well, now you could lose a couple here, you could lose a couple there, and you'd still stay in the range of especially a wild card spot. Now, you don't really have any margin for error, and that's sort of where the Red Sox have been living this entire year. All I wanted was for a couple of series here to have a little bit of a margin of error. They have been skating on thin ice this entire season, and they're going to continue to do that over the next week or so, so we'll see how it works out. I also really hope that both O'Neill and Devers are back as soon as humanly possible, because you can't go up with that lineup we saw on Sunday against any of the Phillies or any of the Yankees teams and expect anything good to happen. Massa should be back as well. We talked to him over the weekend. He seems like he's healthy and good to go, and I'm going to put that maybe at the end of this video. I might give it its own video, but either way, again, you're hoping you get healthy. You're hoping that the experience gets a little bit better, but man, this it feels like the Red Sox 2024 motto has been have avoided disaster to this point, because every time we talk about him, it's like, yeah, it could have gone worse. It could have been absolutely terrible. It just wasn't fantastic. And that's exactly what we saw in this series. But hey, at least they avoided total embarrassment, right? But that's just my opinion. So let me know in the comment section down below. What do you think? What do you think about this series? What do you think about the things that went on in it? What do you think about the series coming up? And what do you think about the health of the Boston Red Sox? Let me know all your thoughts on the latest Red Sox series in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. Just helps these videos out a ton, and it would mean a lot to me. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the red seats.